In the end of every year, in the end of Elul, there used to be a special sikha for the ladies that Rabbi used to give. So in Tovshin Lamed Dalet, the end of Elul, by the gathering of the ladies, the Rebbe spoke a sikha saying that every girl should light candles, not only the mother. And then for the next couple of upbringings, he always spoke the details, how that would help in the education of the children. Some Rabbonim asked him some questions on the new project, and he responded in the sikhas, explaining the dining of chinuch and other dinim that are related with that, bringing from Sora Imenu, from Rivke. But then some Rabbonim wrote to him, how could you come out with such a Mivtza that the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to do it? Let's see what the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch. In Simen Reish Samach Gimel, Seif Tez Vov, he speaks not only about the girls of the house, he speaks even about a lady that comes as a guest. So he says, Im hismucho al shulchan balabais, she is a guest and eating by the balabos, eino yechoyle levorich shom, she cannot make a broche on lighting the Neres Shabbos. Why? She'ein chiyuv ner Shabbos chol oleho klal. She doesn't have to light the candles. Lefi shehi bichlal bnei beis shel balabais v'nifteres b'neirei. So since she is not supposed to light candles, even if she is lighting the candles, she cannot say a broche. Eino yechol levarich shom. So how are you saying, girls, that they are much more than only a guest? They could light candles with the brocha. Alter Rebbe says you cannot. And then the Alter Rebbe doesn't just say you cannot. He explains it. Usually he explains the halacha and the reasoning in Kuntras Achen. So let's see what he says in the beginning, Kuntras Achen, Simen Reish Samach Gimel Sif Kotten Hey. So he says, Ze Poshut, the Bnei Beisai, Einam Tzrichim Ner Lekol Echad. They don't have to light candles separately of the mothers. Why? The whole dinim of Neres Shabbos will learn out the details from Ner Chanukah. In Ner Chanukah, not only the father of the house is lighting candles, every boy in the house is lighting candles. So let's say it's the same thing by Neres Shabbos also, that everyone could light candles. So why did I say before that you cannot? So he explains, Afilu b'Ner Chanukah omru ishu beisai. The Gemara says it's only one person for the house. But then, the Gemara says there is Hamahadrin Ner Lechol Echad. Why? Mishum Pirsume Nise. The Neres Chanukah is a Pirsume Nise, so we want everyone should add to this Pirsume Nise. Ma she'enke b'Ner Shabbos le'ashkechon hidur ze b'Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say there is a hidur, everyone should light candles. Im kein ein levarach alav. So this Rabbonim asked the Rebbe, since the Alter Rebbe paskens in Shulchan Aruch that guest cannot say a brocha, since the Alter Rebbe explains in Kuntras Achen that only by Chanukah the Gemara says that there is a Persum Menise Hamahadrin Ner Lekol Echad. But b'Shabbos we don't find this Hidur. So how could you tell them they should light candles with the bracha? Let's see what the Gemara says. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Chof Aleph Amud Beis, the first paragraph, Tonu Rabbanon, Mitzvahs Chanukah Nei Rishu Beisei. When the father of the house lights the Nei Chanukah, it's good enough for the whole family, for the whole household. Rishu Beisei. Ve'hamehadrin Ner Lekol Echad. The Rabbanon said a hidur because of Persum Menise. Then they said they had added Hamahadrin min Hamahadrin. So beside Besila Lemrim, first day 1 candle, second day 2 candles, till the 8th day 8 candles. So it comes out that Hamahadrin and Hamahadrin, every one of the house lights 1 candle the first night and adds every night till the 8th. So that's all by Chanukah for Persum Menise. But b'Shabbos we don't find it. So therefore the Alter Rebbe paskens that even if she lights candles, she cannot say a bracha. So they asked the Rebbe, how do you say they should say a bracha? And the Rebbe responded that in Beis Harav, children used to light candles with a bracha. So we must say that after the Alter Rebbe wrote this in Shulchan Aruch, he later changed his mind that you could light candles with the bracha, every lady of the house, every girl of the house, because that's what in Beis Harav they used to do. So there is no question how do we do against the Shulchan Aruch, because later there was a Madura Basra that he said that you could. Otherwise, in Beis Harav they would not light candles with the bracha, every girl of the house. Okay, he changed his mind. But where do we find a day that you could light candles with the bracha? So that the Rebbe gave the task to the Kollel to study this subject and explain why there is a day that you could say a bracha. I remember I was then in Kollel. I remember Rabbi Groner, the secretary, came in and he told us that the Rebbe would like the Kollel to study the subject and to write down the conclusions. The Kollel chose 3 people to prepare a contrast with explaining this Halachah. Myself, Rabbi Lustig, who then became the principal of Halachah, and Rabbi Silverberg, who is a shliach in Michigan. We studied the whole subject, and we found there is a very strange halacha in Ner Shabbos that helps understand why a girl could say a bracha, even though she was already yetze with her mother's lighting the candle. What is the halacha? So let's start from the Gemara. The Gemara tells a story about Reb Zera. First, Reb Sheshes says a guest is chayiv b'nei Chanukah. Even if he's only a guest, he has to light candles. Then Omar Reb Zera. Reb Zera was in yeshiva. In those days in yeshiva, they didn't have a dormitory. Each one had his own food. But they lived in the house of the Rosh Yeshiva, in the yeshiva dormitory. So he says, so I don't light candles. So Mereish, in the beginning, kad havine berav, when I learned in the yeshiva by our Rebbe, mishtatafne beprite behade ushpize. I was only a student, but the Rosh Yeshiva lit candles for Hanukkah. So I am not part of it. So I gave him a prute. I should be a shutef, participate in his lighting candles. This was when he was a bocher. Then he got married, but he continued learning in yeshiva in Keilel. So then he changed. Rab Zera says, Bosar de Nesive, Itze, after I married my wife, Amine, I said, Hashto vadai leitzrichne. Now I don't need anymore to give a prute to be a shutef in the Rosh Yeshiva's lighting candles. Why? The command leki olai bekoi beisoi. My wife lights candles in my house, so that's good enough for me. That's the story in the Gemara. And that's the halacha in the Gemara speaks about Hanukkah. The same thing is also about Shabbos. We'll learn out many halachas from Hanukkah to Shabbos, so the Alter Rebbe paskens the halacha also in Shabbos. And he says in Siman Reish Samar Gimel Seif Tes, Bachurim ha'helchim lilmeid chutz lebeisam, im ein lecheder meyuchet sham. If he has a separate room, he could light the candles there. If he doesn't, hu mekayem b'ma shemadlikim ner Shabbos bebeisei mishalei. If they light, if he's already married, and they light in his house, that's good enough for him. Im ein le mishyadlik bebeisei, he is still a bocher. Tzorich hu lekayem mitzvahs adlogas ner Shabbos b'mokim shehu al yedei she'iten pruto labalabais lishtatef me b'ner shelei. He has to give a pruta to the balabos that he is a shutef in the candle, so he has part in the candle. If he doesn't eat his own, then he is part of the family and he doesn't need separate candles, because when the balabos lights, the lady of the house lights, it's already for him too. But if he has his own food, then he has a chiyuv on himself, and therefore, in order to be part of the mitzvah, he has to give a pruta. He doesn't need a separate candle or a prute. This is the halacha. But the question is, what is the whole halacha about? Why should he need to give a prute? They should light for him in the house or anything else. This house, the balabos of the house, lights candles. It's for the whole house. So I don't need anymore. The house has already candles. Let's say there is a house and has a mezuzah, and I'm living there. So do I have to put up a mezuzah separately? Or do I have to give a shtatfes in buying the mezuzah? It should be part of it? Why? The house has already a mezuzah. When the lady of the house or the husband lights the candles of Shabbos or Hanukkah, the house has already the candles. So why do I need to be part of it? Why do I have to give a pruto? Or why do they have to light candles in my house for my money? I should be part of it. So we see that the lighting of candles is not like a mezuzah, that the house needs a mezuzah. There is no obligation on each one to have a mezuzah. The house needs a mezuzah. The house has a mezuzah, it's enough. But the candles, there is candles here, it's not enough. Each one has a chiyuv to light candles. If everyone has the obligation to light candles, so why don't they have to light candles when they are a guest or they are children of the house? Now the Rebbe says, when do I have to light candles? Only when I eat my own food. I'm not a guest. If I'm a guest, I don't need to. So if it's obligation on each one, then even a guest should have to. If it's not an obligation on each one, then even someone is not a guest shouldn't have to. So we see here that there is an obligation of lighting candles on each lady and girl. But if they are members of the family or they are guests of the family, so when the lady lights the candles, it's for them too. If they eat their own food, then the obligation on them stays, and it's not dependent if the lady of the house lights the candles. So therefore, they have to participate with the prute to be shutef, because they have a own obligation. But when they are guest or a girl of the house, they are yetzer with the mothers lighting candles. But it doesn't mean they don't have a obligation, because we already see that the obligation is on each one to light candles.
Can you repeat how we see that? It's an obligation for everyone individually.
Why do they have to give a prute to be a shutef in the candle? She is lighting the candles, the house has already. So we say it's not enough, because even if she lights candles, I didn't fulfill my obligation. If there is obligation on me, so why shouldn't the girl of the house? Because she is yoitze, her obligation with the mothers lighting candles. If she is a guest, so she is yoitze, her obligation with the lady of the house lighting candles. After we see that there is obligation on each one lighting candles, it is just if you are a guest or a daughter of the mother, so she is moitziur. So you could have in mind that you are lighting candles and you are not yoitze with her. Since you have in mind that you are not yoitze with her, so the obligation stays on you. So you could say a bracha. If we would say there is no obligation, but we see from this halachah there is obligation, but the mother is meitziur. The mother is meitziur. So you want to do it by yourself. For this gula of lighting candles is special, one of the three things of the ladies. So you want to do it on yourself. So you don't want to be yetzer with the mother. So then you could say a bracha. Right. The Alter Rebbe says that you cannot say a bracha because there is no obligation on you, because you are yetzer with the mother. But in the house of the Rabbeim, they did. So therefore, we both say that in the final decision is that you could say a bracha. Why could you? Because you have in mind not to be yetzer, so then automatically the obligation stays on you. The Rebbe then even explained in one of the sichas, therefore it's better that the girl should light candles before the mother. Why? If the girl lights candles, she certainly doesn't have in mind to be made to her mother. So then the mother could say a bracha. But if the mother lights candles, she could have in mind she is yetze, so then she can say a bracha. And then the Rebbe said, with a smile in the Verbringen, that there is another reason for it. If the girl lights first, and there is a problem with the match, so the mother could help her. If the mother would light candles first, and then she would and she would have the problem, the mother couldn't buy it on the Shabbos. But that's the idea, that the final decision is that you can have in mind not to be Yetzer, so therefore you could have Bracha.
So what do you have to have in mind to be Mivtza your household if you're lighting?
You certainly having you're lighting for the whole household, because your husband doesn't have to light candles and the sons don't have to light candles. There is obligation on each one to light candles, but they are Yetzer with yours. So you have in mind to be Meitzi everyone. But the girls of the house, since it's a skula of lighting candles for ladies, so they want to do it themselves. So they have in mind not to be Yetzer with the mother. So then it stays on them the obligation, so they could say Bracha.
So we have to make sure to have that in mind.
No, it's automatically. If you are going to light candles, automatically you don't have in mind.
We said that if a single boy is not married, then he does have the obligation to give money to the Rosh Hashiva.
Correct.
Why can't he be Yetzer to his mother?
Because he's not home. His mother.
It's not his own house, but with his wife, it's his own house.
Yes, and it's not only Rishon, the Alter Rebbe adds from his money, because the money of the candle is mine, so it could, the obligation that stays on me, I could do.
In general, if someone's being Yetzer, you also have to have in mind to be Yetzer. Like
It's automatically, if you're not planning to, automatically you have in mind that she is doing for the whole house, including you.
right, but like let's say with Kiddush, if someone makes Kiddush and
Yes.
they have you in mind.
Yes. And so if you don't have in mind, if you have in mind not to be Yetzer, so then you have to make Kiddush for yourself. But automatically, if you're planning not to make Kiddush for yourself, so you hear it from him.
That's very interesting. So if you have in mind, you have to make. If you didn't hear Kiddush, you have to hear Kiddush. You have to make
Correct.
Kiddush again.
Yes.
And that means the person making Kiddush has to know you're going to make Kiddush, so he doesn't have you in mind.
And if he has in your mind and you don't have, if he has your in mind and you don't have in mind, if you're planning to make Kiddush for himself.
That's a man.
When the Rebbe started this Mivtza, Rebbetzin Sternberg, she was wondering in her house also when she was a girl, she lit candles. So she felt it's not only in the Beis Horav. So she is from her grandfather was a Rebbe, Kabishnitzer, and others she had a connection. She really wanted to know how other Hasidim do. So she made a whole research. And she asked around. And she found out that many Chassidus, the children, are lighting candle for themselves with the bracha. She wrote in the Rebbe a list of whatever was told. So the Rebbe answered her. The answer was printed in the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe. Let's see what the Rebbe answers here. Limtzei ha'atoke of the list that you wrote to me, give a copy de la ma'areches ha'kuntres al dvar adloches aneres. There are a few young light that are working on a kuntres. So they also want to add the details. So give them a list. She gave me the list, and I put in the whole list in the kuntres that we prepared them. We prepared the list, the kuntres, we gave it into the Rebbe, and as we see that the Rebbe wanted to fill it up with the details, and then we were going to publish it, the Rebbe responded through the Maskiras that it would be a nice idea, we should send it out to Rabbonim. Because many Rabbonim are asking questions, so let them have the answers. So we got a list of the addresses of the Rabbonim in Agudas Rabbonim, his Ardas Rabbonim, Igud Rabbonim. These are the main three Rabbonim organizations. His Ardas is the Satmer, the Chassidim, and their affiliates, and Agudas Rabbonim is the general, and the Igud Rabbonim was more the Young Israel type. So we printed close to 3,000 copies, we sent out to all the Rabbanim. Then the office of the Rebbe asked me to bring them a bunch of Kuntreisim for the Rebbe. So I gave them. Then we saw in the Igros Kodesh a letter that the Rebbe is writing to one of the Rabbanim. One of the Rabbanim asked him again the same thing. How do you say a bracha? So the Rebbe is writing to him, as we see in the last line. ובפני עצמי נשלח לקטר קונטרס שהדפיס כאן אחד מהרבונים הצעירים שיחיה. They came out of Kuntras, and I think to respond to your questions, we'll send you this Kuntras. So that's more or less what was then and what was the Asbor. But this is not enough. Why isn't it enough? Okay, we say everyone has an obligation. Reb Zerer, when he had the obligation and he wanted to fill his obligation, he gave a prute to participate in the candles. You could give a prute, but here you are also lighting candles. What is adding another candle mean? We have already candles. Till now we spoke about the obligation. So we figured out that everyone has the obligation. But what is the obligation? To put a candle on the table, to light a candle on the table. But there is already a candle. What are you adding a second light, a second candle? What does it do? So then we saw there is a second halacha in Shulchan Aruch. The second halacha doesn't speak about the guest in the house. It speaks about two families. They have only one dining room. Each one wants to light candles. It says Gula, and it's here for certain there is obligation on each one, because each one is a separate family. So each one, I cannot say that the obligation is on you and not on me, or on me and not on you. We are both families. We want to. So they want to light both candles on the same table, because the main mitzvah is to light candles where you eat. So what do they do? So there is 2 days, there's a machlekes. The Rebbe brings down in Simen Reish Samach Gimel Seif Yud. Beis a Gimel Balibatim she'echlin mal shulchan echad umevochim kol echad al manera shaloi. Each one has another candle, another chandelier. Yes mefakfik im lemer sheyesh ken bochel levatole. Because there is already a candle on the table. What is adding a second candle on the same table? Lefi shekvar yesh shom oiro merubo menera shehidlik orishon. Veyesh miyashvim aminheg. Shekol ma shenites vo ero bebayis yesh besholem bayis v'simcho yesera lanos ero b'chol zevis. There is a candle already. I add a candle, I add light. More light in the room. More simcha. More koved for Shabbos. So that is also an idea of lighting candles. Even though there is already a candle, a second candle is also adding. If I don't have any obligation, I don't have to. But if there is obligation, I want to, so it adds. So therefore, after we got the first halacha, that there is obligation on each one, and if he has in mind not to be yoitze, so the obligation stays on him, so it becomes like two families on one table. So there is those days that say that you cannot, but there is a day, and that's the maskone, that you still add light, so you could say a brocha on the ending of the light.
So why don't the sons also light?
The sons don't have, why should they light? There is no connection between the sons and only the chiyuv. So they have already, the mother is doing it for them, so it's enough. The girl wants to have a participation in this mitzvah because Chane, there is 3 mitzvahs given to the ladies. Chale, we'll speak soon about Chale, Nide, and Adlokas Haner. So Adlokas Haner, she wants to have a participation in the mitzvah. So she's looking a way that you should be able to do it.
When the Alter Rebbe allows more than one person to light on the same table because it's Meisif Or, that's because those people have an actual chayva to light.
Correct.
But wouldn't it really be not l'chachila to light if you don't really have a chayva and you could have been...
Correct. That was his maskone in Shulchan Aruch, and that's why he says in Shulchan Aruch not to. But then the Rebbe says, since in Beis Rav they did, so for certain the maskone of him was, even though she has in mind not to be Yetze, she's also becoming the same halacha like that halacha of 2 families on the same table.
And where's the sources for this?
The sources is because the families of the house of the Rabbi Sarav did it, and we find the explanation, so we're certain that this is the final decision. That's what the Rebbe said there. Practically, we still have sometimes a problem which is important for girls to know. We discussed that if she has in mind not to be Yetze, so it's her obligation, she could light another candle here. But it happens so often that the girls go to eat by a friend as a guest. When does she go there? After davening, when time comes for reading. She doesn't want to go there before Shabbos, lighting their candles, waiting till they finish davening, and then she'll eat there. So what does girls do? Let's say I have a girl who stays in my house, and she eats by a friend. So she would light candles in my house, and after davening, she would go to eat there. But here there is... Yes, she has in mind not to be Yetze, so she has obligation. What is her obligation? Her obligation is to light a candle where she is eating. She's not eating here. She doesn't have any obligation to light here a candle. So how could she light here a candle with a brocha? She doesn't have obligation to put here. Not only because she doesn't have in mind, she doesn't have any obligation. She has obligation to light where she is eating, but she is not lighting there. So that's a problem. And let's say even if she comes back later after the meal to eat, to sleep here by me, it's not enough, because when she comes to sleep, the candles are already out. So she doesn't have anything from this candle. She doesn't eat by it, she doesn't sleep by it, she doesn't come in here, so it doesn't help her. So there is not simple to understand why she could do that. But girls still do that. So the only way that at least we could figure a way it shouldn't be that harsh is she lights candles and she goes to the guest after davening. So she stays here in the room till after downing. So she stays here for half an hour or more. So she has some benefit of a Shabbos table with candles. Maybe that helps. But at least that's for sure. If she comes here and she lights candles and she goes away, there is no obligation. So since there is no obligation, there is no way why she could say a bracha here.
What if there's nobody else who would be fulfilling the chiyuv? Like if she lives by herself, then is there this issue or not at all?
Same issue, because if she doesn't eat here, she lights candles and goes away. What is lighting candles? Lighting candles means where you eat or where you do something. Here she lights candles and goes away, so the candle doesn't help her. Even if she has obligation, it's the obligation to light candles where she is using it. Here she's not using. So she has to use it, to wait till it gets a little darker or what, or sit near it. It should do something for her. This is a summary of the halachah of lighting candles. Let's go in now to the second half. Licheire, why do we have to look for reasoning and say that the Alter Rebbe says you cannot? We could still do it for this reason, for that reason. The Alter Rebbe himself, in the same seif, ends the seif that the minhag that you could do it anyways. Let's say and let's see what he says. And we'll see that what he says, he speaks about a specific case. And that case helps us to understand another part of the mitzvah and of other halachas that are related, including taking challah. And that will help us to understand the halacha of lighting candles and also of taking challah. I mentioned taking challah because the same thing we do in taking challah. The three mitzvahs that are a special connection to ladies is challah and also hadlakas haner. So each one wants to have a part in the mitzvah. So what do? Sometime they make a big challah. Each one is taking a shiur of challah and takes from their challah, and from that challah she says a bracha and she does the mitzvah. So we'll try to find out if there is similar to our problem and to our solution. Let's see first what the Alter Rebbe says in Sif Tezvov. We said before, he says that you cannot say a brocha because you're bnei bayis. Let's see the last line of Sif Tezvov. Ve'yesh choilkim al ze, v'chein nispashet aminik b'medinas elu, that you could do. You could say the bracha on lighting the candles. If the Alter Rebbe ends the last line of Sif Tezvov, that the minhag is that you could, so why do we have to look for other sources and other explanations? The reason why is because the Alter Rebbe, when he says that the minhag is to say a bracha, and chen is a minhag, that's the special case. Let's see what the special case is, and what the halacha is there, and what we learn out from that halacha. In the Sif Tezvov, he starts saying that you cannot say a bracha. Then he adds another paragraph. Af im balabais metzave lo lahadlik ve'eser shliach lepetre mechiyuvei shu chayev lahadlik shom lefi shemishtamesh shom b'Shabbos. What is this halacha? Nowadays, we don't really need the candles to bring light. You shouldn't fall when you walk, because there is always electric light. You need the light for the honor and the simcha where you eat. But once there wasn't electric light, so you have to light a candle not only where you eat. If you light a candle only when you eat, then you have to bring food. So you go to the kitchen and there's dark, so you'll fall there and you'll get hurt. So you have to have a candle there too. So you have a guest, and the guest tells you, look, I want to have a participation in the mitzvah. So let's make up like that. You, the lady of the house, you light the candle on the table where we eat. I will light a candle in the kitchen, which is also obligation. And I will say a bracha on the candle that I light in the kitchen. So why do we have to look for other sources? That's the best way. So says the Alter Rebbe, there is a machlekes if she could say a bracha on that. Why shouldn't she? If you have an obligation to light the candle in the kitchen, so the other lady is lighting a candle in the kitchen and saying a bracha. So the Rebbe explains, when there is obligation to light in the kitchen, on whom is that obligation? On the guest? No, on the lady of the house. She has to light a candle not only in the dining room, in the kitchen too. Now she lit a candle in the dining room and she said a bracha. So when I light a candle in the kitchen, I'm not lighting for myself, because it's not on my obligation. So I light that candle b'shliches for the lady. What is the deal if I light the candle for her? When someone doesn't want to do the mitzvah himself, he tells me to do the mitzvah for him. I say the bracha, because I do the mitzvah. Even though I don't do the mitzvah for myself, I do the mitzvah for her, but I still do this and say the bracha. Why? It's my obligation to help her. It's called arves. Sure, the lady of the house has to light the candle in the kitchen, but I'm doing it for her. So it's my obligation to help her. So I'm doing a mitzvah. So I could say bracha. That's if she tells me to light the candles for her. But here, the lady of the house already said the bracha when she lit the candle on the table. If she lights a candle in the kitchen later, she doesn't have to say a bracha, because the bracha she said is already on the whole obligation, including all the candles. When you are coming to light the candle there, you cannot say a bracha. I said already a bracha on that candle too. You're doing it for me. If I wouldn't say the bracha, you could say the bracha. But I said already the bracha. And the bracha I made is not only for the candle in the dining room, also for the candle in the kitchen. So why should you be able to say a bracha? That's one day. The second day it says, okay, you said a bracha, but actually I do something, a mitzvah for you. So you said the bracha already, but I still do a mitzvah of kol Yisrael ha'arevim ze b'zeh. So I want to do a bracha on the mitzvah that I'm doing. There is a machlekes. Alter Rebbe explains this machlekes, and then he says that since ladies want so much to be part of this mitzvah, and they are naked not, so you could do it. They are naked to do it. In that case, it doesn't mean that you could have in mind not to be yetze and light candles on the table. That the Alter Rebbe doesn't say. That became later. But about when, if the second lady lights in the kitchen with the broche, that is accepted. That's the minhag, and that's what it says. So let's see it inside the two dayas, and then we'll see from this two other halachas. First it says, Af im balabais metzave lo lahadlik, ואיסר שליח לפטרי מחיובי שהוא חייב להדליק שם לפי שמשתמש שם בשבס because he goes in the kitchen also so he needs there also a candle מכל מקום כיוון שהוא אישתו בירכו במקום אחד they already said the brocha in the dining room ונפטר בברוכה זו לכל החדורים. If the lady of the house would light later a candle in the kitchen, she wouldn't have to say another brocha, because the first brocha was on all the candles she is lighting. Im kein, gam shlucha eine yochel levarach shem. Just as if she herself would light there a second candle, she wouldn't say a brocha. So when I do it for her, I don't have to say a brocha. That's the day that you cannot. Even in this case. Then the Alter Rebbe says, but some say that you could. Ve'yesh chelkin. And say that if you light candles in the kitchen, you could say a brocha. V'chein is pashet aminek b'medinas ha'elu. Explaining this day that you could, he's explaining it again in the Kuntras Achen, in the second paragraph. So he says like this, Hatam, why do they say that you could? Mishum dehei metzuven b'mitzvah zu mitzat arves. Kol Yisrael ha'reven ze b'zeh. So the lady that lights the candle in the kitchen, av shebalabais niftar bebroche achas b'chol hachadorim. So the balabais, if she would light another candle, she wouldn't have to say a broche. Mikol makim, hein, the other lady that is lighting a candle in the kitchen, just as if she would do the mitzvah of lighting candles, she has to say a bracha, so here the mitzvah of Arvas is also a mitzvah. Im kein lama lo yevorech al kriya v'zek, mishim yevorech ha m'chuyev mach besatzmei. Ulahochi ein limches ulavatul laminek shenoagu b'adlokis haneres. The minhag is that if a lady comes as a guest, so she is lighting the candle in the kitchen and saying a bracha. You could rely on that.
When we say that the mitzvah are was for saying we're making a bracha on.
Yes, because when I am a orev means that I have a mitzvah to do the mitzvah for you. So it's like I'm doing that mitzvah, even though you wouldn't have to say the bracha, but I do it for you. So for me it's a mitzvah. So I could, there is a machlekes in Poskim, if you could do it or not.
What question does this answer? Like what part?
That if there is a guest in my house and she wants to light candles, we still say that she cannot light candles in the kitchen, in the table, but she could light candles for me in the kitchen, and then you could say a bracha.
So, if you're not going to be eating where you're lighting, is it better to light in a dark room so that you're using the light?
We today do it even if there is light, because we assume that Meisiv Simcha, even if it's not a lighting, a dark room.
Even if you're not eating there, though.
If you're not eating, there is not obligation. The obligation is where you use. If you sleep there or you use it, mainly if you use it for preparing food or for whatever you do. So if you do something there, you have obligation. But if you don't do nothing there, there is no obligation, as we spoke before.
Is the obligation on the person or on the place? Because let's say I'm not going to be eating home and I have
You're obligated to light, but there, not
So I need to
here.
go. So
You have no obligation to light here.
what if I can't make it there? Then I should still light?
That's what we spoke before. So the only way is to light candles here and sit here by the table for some time or in the room for some time, that you enjoy it. If you don't do nothing with it, so you don't have the obligation.
Best is to light where you eat.
Yes, that's no question.
Even if you don't use it for food, like you could just sit and like read a book and that's enough.
That's what the Rabbi said. You could even tell you.
It's better. It's better certainly, as we say here, where mishtamshim shom b'Shabbos. It's better where you do something there with food, but even without that, it's also better than nothing, because the idea of having light, you shouldn't fall, shouldn't trip and fall. That's what it says in Shonor. Is every place that you walk. So it helps, and after now you have light and the electric, but still it's a place that could add light, so it's good. So at least you should sit sometime in that room.
Why isn't this like taught to us? I never heard that concept till you explained this. Like I feel like we should know that, so we shouldn't be making brachas for sake. In seminary, the amount of times we're on off Shabbos and we eat where you're staying at home.
I don't know why they don't teach that. I guess, in order to understand that, you have to have the whole introduction that we spoke, and then you could understand it. Otherwise, girls, I know I had guests, it used to be still at the time where they used to run right after when there was Yom Tov and Shabbos, you used to light candles and run, catch a place in 770. So they didn't even stay for 1 second. And I told them you can't. It didn't help much. So not always it helps, you have to understand. And I guess that you are learning that to understand the background, so you understand the details.
It's just this minhag is so permissive in a way, like light candles, anyone who wants, that even the slightest bit of obligation that you have to stay a little bit and enjoy the candles is just
Right.
hard to accept. People don't
Because
realize.
otherwise, if you have in mind not to be Eitzah, and you have obligation, but there's no obligation to put a candle somewhere.
So they should just not light at all?
I don't know. If they are not staying here for even for a short time, there's no point in saying a bracha, because that bracha says is your obligation. You have no obligation here.
So if a married woman forgets to light one Shabbos, she needs to light a new candle. But if someone who, because if the whole bias didn't have a candle on Shabbos, but if someone who is samach al shulchan, they don't need to light. If they forget to light, it's fine. Even they don't have to do maybe like Ataras Nadarim, because they do it all the time.
I don't know about the Thousand Durham. Thousand Durham is when you took on yourself a decision. Here you do it because there's a minhag. So you missed the minhag, but you didn't miss the mitzvah. So there is no penalty.
If you have candles that last a long time, so when you come back, you use the candles, that's fine, right?
Yes. It usually doesn't happen. If you go as a guest to somewhere, usually it doesn't happen.
Might buy these candles. She would light an oil like this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So is there any other mitzvahs where this idea is like that? You could make a shliach, and you could also do the mitzvah, and then the shliach can also make
So
it.
let's see soon. The Alter Rebbe,
Back to the Chalash.
we'll get to it.
Oh, got to it.
Let's see, we spoke about where the Alter Rebbe explains in Gunter Sachen both days, and he ends up, Ulehochi ein limchis ulevatel laminek shenagu be'adlokis aneris kiven sheyesh lem al ma sheyismechu. There is a day that says you can, and you want to do it, do it. Avol gabe shefer obdikas chometz she'ein sheminek sofek boris loken. What is the story with Bdikas Chometz? I'm sure you know that in Bdikas Chometz, when the father has grown-up children, they also want to have part in the mitzvah. So what do? The father is bedek, 1 room or 2 rooms, and then each room he sends one of the children. So what do we have to do? Let's see in Shulchan Aruch, and the same thing is in Siddur and in Minhagim, how do we do it? In Siman Tov Lamed Beis Sif Ches. Choivas abdiko hi al balabais. Who has to be beidig the house from Chometz? The father. Im balabais reitze lasses bnei beitze shluchim ledvar mitzvah. It's hard from him, and he says that your son, do it for me. Shiv de kuheim, roshus biyode, v'yivorchu heim birkas al bir Chometz. Because they are doing the mitzvah for me, so they say the bracha. Im eine yochel litreach ba'atzme livdik b'kol ha'chadome v'kol ha'mekemes. It's hard for me to be beidik the whole house. So I beidik 1 or 2 rooms. And the other rooms, I tell my son, you do the rest. Ivdik hu cheder echad is avesechad. V'yamid mibnei boisei etle b'sho shemavorich al b'dikosei. Your sons, that they are going to be beidik the other rooms, they should stand near you when you say the bracha. V'chavin leitzim b'birchosei. When the father says al bir chometz, he has in mind to be mates the children. V'heim yanu omein nach ha-birchosei. They are answering Omen, which means that they are Yetzer with this bracha. These kavnolotzes b'birchosei. They are having mind to be Yetzer with this bracha. Then these pas will leave the ish dem keme. That's the din what says in Shulchan Aruch. Question is, why all this? If they could say a bracha, let each one go to a room, say a bracha there. If they cannot say a bracha, let each one go to his room and not say a bracha. Because the balabais already have a mind for all the rooms. The reason is because there is a machlekes. If the son could say a bracha on the room after the father said already a bracha on the whole house, just like we spoke before by Adlokas Aneres. So what does he say? He shouldn't say the bracha. What does he say by Shabbos? You say a bracha. So what's it different? The Rabbi explains because this is something they want to have a special sgula, and they are neig to say, and there is a day that you could say, so let them do it. But B'dikas Chometz, there is no minhag. So what should they say? That's what the Alter Rebbe ends. Aval gabe shefer B'dikas Chometz she'ein sheminhag. So if a bracha is local, they cannot say bracha. They could just listen to the bracha of the father and then say amen.
What's a shofar? It's like
What is shofar? Somebody said in shul a bracha and start blowing. He blew half and became tired, or he can't blow anymore. There is no one in the shul that knows how to blow. Came in somebody from the outside that he knows how to blow, and he already heard shofar, he heard the bracha already, or he said the bracha already, and he is blowing now for us, for the rest of the tkiyas that we still didn't hear. Should he say a bracha? He's doing it for us, for the mitzvah. But we already heard the bracha. So when he does it for us, is it obligation on him, mitzad kol Yisrael arev zeh to blow for us? Could he say a bracha on that? Machlekes. So therefore you don't. So he has to blow without the bracha. Because we already heard the bracha. And he already was Yetzer before. So he can't. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, that by B'dikas Chometz and by Shefer, there is no special thing. L'shmeya kel Shefer, a mitzvah to hear. But there is no obligation on each one to blow for himself. So there is no special reason why he should say it. So Sofik Brach's local, so he doesn't say bracha. Machlekes. But by us, since Hadlokas Haner is a special mitzvah for the ladies, and each one wants to have part of it, so then she could go to the kitchen and say bracha. From this we come to the din of challah. One lady wants to every girl should have a part in the mitzvah of Challah, which is also one of the mitzvahs of the ladies. So she makes a big dough, which has as the size of Chiyuv Challah several times, and she invites a few girls, and she divides the dough into several parts. Each one does take one part. I take one part. I say a brocha on my part, and then each one takes a piece of challah and says a brocha for herself. It's the same thing. When the dough belongs to me. So when I say a brocha, I'm saying a brocha already on all parts. If I would say now take another part challah from the other piece of dough, I don't have to say a brocha again because I said a brocha on everything. They do it not for them because it's not their dough. It's my dough. So they do it b'shlichus for me. It's the same machlekes. If she could say a bracha, and how we do, we all know that we're doing it for a sgula and each one is saying a bracha. Why? Because that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Simen Tov Nun Zayin Siv Dalet. ואחשוב שנוהגו העולם לא לוש איסס גדלס משיעור חלו ונוהגו שמכל איסה ואיסה מפרשס אישו אחרת ומברכת לעצמו because she wants to have part in the schus, so they're doing it. Why over there she can do it and by B'dikas Chometz not? Because by B'dikas Chometz there is no special reason and no minhag, but here each one wants to have part in the mitzvah.
Isn't this different though? Because for chametz and the Shabbos candles, there actually is a chiyuv on every room to be checked. But here, if there was one big dough in the first place, even though she divided, there's only one chiyuv. One.
If I am doing and I have in mind that it goes only on this one, my bracha goes only on this one, and you do the other one for me. So when you do it, you say the bracha.
The other one doesn't need challah to be taken.
Because it's not yours, but I need.
Do I though? Because I needed them all at once, even
Yes.
though it's a few times.
Yes, but I have in mind that I am saying a bracha only on this part, and you have in mind you do a bracha only on that part. But when you say a bracha on that, it's b'shlichus of me, and I said already the bracha. So according to the other day, you can't. But we're relying on that. That's the other part where the Alter Rebbe says, by Nerot Shabbos and B'challah you can, but B'dikas Chometz and Shefer you cannot. But for us, this whole subject is a second subject. Because when we light candles on the same table, it's not enough to explain that. For that, the Alter Rebbe says that in any case you cannot. So therefore, we need the other explanation as we discussed before.
I have a question. If it was so important for the Rabbi that, or like if it's such an important mitzvah for every girl to light, why doesn't it say them first that it's a chiyuv for every girl to light with a bracha? And like it seems like the Rabbi took like a random thing and like we need to look now all around to find a reason why every girl could light. Like, what's the story?
He explained in the first sikha and the second sikha that this helps a lot to the education of each girl when she knows she's bringing in the Shabbos with the light, with the candles, so it helps for her education. And therefore, whenever you go to the college campuses and you get somebody to light candles, it will bring eventually, she should keep more Shabbos. And then the Rebbe added another thing, that the girl should light only one candle, because the mother lights 2 candles for her and for her husband. The girl lights only for her. He said a lot of details because, and he always explained how this is helping for the big mitzvah of it, that she wants to be part of it. He brought the story of Sarah and Rivke, that it says when Rivki came to Yitzchak, and she came to the oil of Sarah. So when Sarah lit the candles, there was a special Shabbos in the house. But now Sarah is not there. She lit the candles, and Yitzchak saw the same holiness comes by here. So it lit up the house. So the Rebbe explained in very many details what it means for education of our generation. But in the Rabbeim's house we saw it, but we have to explain why we could do it. We know why we want to do it, for the education and spiritual reasons, but you have to be able to do it. So the Alter Rebbe says you cannot say a bracha. So that's why the Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe in the end, he found a way that you could do it. That's why in Beis Harav you do it. That's why in other Chassidus also in Beis Harav you do it. So you could do it. But that's not the reason why you should do it. You should do it because there's a Mivtza that helps to educate the girls.
I have a question. When it says Tzarech Achila, does it need to be like the Seudah of Shabbos, or is it just random eating?
Seudah of Shabbos, whatever you eat in Shabbos is the Seudah of Shabbos, because you cannot eat till you make Kodesh, and then
What if, let's say, with the example that somebody's not eating where they are, but when they come back, the candles are still there?
So that's what it says, that still the main mitzvah, it says, we don't learn all the details of where the mitzvah is, but it says the main mitzvah is where you eat, because that gives the joy of eating of the Seudah Shabbos is eineg, and this gives the eineg. When you eat in a dark place, it doesn't give you eineg. Yes, today it's more romantic, maybe when it's dark, but in general, when it's light, it's more eineg Shabbos. That's the main part. But still, if you sleep somewhere else and there is no light, you should have light there too, a candle there too, because otherwise you may fall and sleep and get hurt. So therefore the mitzvah is on every place. The brocha, it says, you should say where you eat, not in the other place, because that's the main part where the mitzvah is. But yes, over there is also a mitzvah. Therefore we say that if you can't light where you eat, because you're staying by me and you're going to far place and you don't want to go and wait there now, so at least you should have some achievement, enjoyment of this candle. That's not lachatchila. Lachatchila you should light where you eat.
What if it's two balabais and neither of them are eating there? Does it complicate it?
Like here we live in an apartment, like and we
Yeah,
don't
if
eat
two
there.
girls live together and neither of them are eating there, can they both light in the same room and make a bracha even if there's light? If they stay there for half an
If
hour
they have
after?
I don't think that these halachas are specifically explained in Shulchan Aruch, but according to what we do, at least this, so at least that helps. When it says second light, second candle, gives more simcha, more light, so probably at least something that we're looking to, something to be able to put our hands on, that it helps, because the main mitzvah is there, but at least something should be.